The running back wheel continues to spin, and we've had some serious plug-and-play contenders establish themselves as of late. Here are 8 running backs sticking out and trending upwards as we head into Week 8. Let's start with Darrell Henderson. With Kyren Williams on the IR still, the question began to rise on who would be backing him up consistently at least. We heard rumblings of Zach Evans early on, then maybe Royce Freeman, but Darrell Henderson got 19 touches and a score in last week's contest. This makes sense for the foreseeable future unless we have some other news leaks, since Henderson has had success with this offense in the past. He's familiar with the Rams. He's averaged 4.4 yards per carry in his 5-year career in Los Angeles, and similar to the Kareem Hunt situation in Cleveland where he was signed and activated on pretty short notice, he knows this offense. This is somebody who understands Sean McVay's system, and as a result, he was in for 57% of snaps this past week. Now, Royce Freeman was more efficient in this game, I will note that, but he's not too durable and does not have a receiving background at all. Darrell Henderson, at least in a small sample size, showed a glimmer of PPR volume by getting a pair of targets, one of which he did haul in. It gets a little easier for Henderson in the next couple of weeks, considering he'll go toe-to-toe with the Cowboys and Packers defenses. Those are two teams that have struggled to stop the run, are allowing well over 4 yards per carry, and are among the bottom half of the league in overall run defense. Jaleel McLaughlin is a name that continues to buzz around the fantasy community, but isn't getting quite enough attention to be claimed in most leagues. Now, this is a deeper league move, I will say, considering that Javonte Williams is seeing a bulk of the touches right now in Denver. McLaughlin has 46 touches through 7 games, which isn't ideal. It's nothing too notable. But what is notable is that he has been undeniably efficient. The guy is averaging 2.8 yards after contact per attempt. That's the 4th highest mark among all backs right now. 6.9 yards per carry should not cause a drop in playing time, but Sean Payton did only have the guy in for 17% of snaps this past week. That's the least amount of snaps that McLaughlin has seen since week 2. This is also a tough scenario to be in for someone unless he gets more involved as a receiver, because keep in mind, Denver allows more points than anybody else in the NFL at 31 per game. That means this team's going to have to go throw heavy. They're going to have to get into an arms race. So I'm pitching McLaughlin as one of the few fantasy stashes on this list today. You might not want to start him very soon. Again, unless you're in a deep league. Chuba Hubbard is on a losing team as well, but at least for this next week, he is the RB1 for the Panthers and has been the best option Frank Reich has had out of the backfield so far in 2023. We're still waiting for the story to fully unfold with Miles Sanders not being out for too long of a period. At least that's what we're expecting. But I like what Hubbard has done in this environment, and I like his ability to capitalize on the few targets that he's had. His 2.5 yards per route run mark was second among running backs who saw at least 10 targets in 2022. Again, he only saw a little over 1 target per game, but this is somebody who's optimizing whenever he gets the chance. And we talked about this before, but week 6 was honestly a tryout for Chuba Hubbard with Miles Sanders out, and he ended up having the best performance of any Carolina running back so far this season. 19 rushes for 88 yards with a score is nothing to scoff at, and it does seem that outside of Sanders and Hubbard, there aren't a lot of feasible options being used by Carolina right now in the foreseeable future. Looking at the long term, Hubbard is beating Sanders in yards before contact and yards after contact per attempt. He's just more efficient, regardless of how you stack it up. Hubbard is progressing into making this his backfield, and if you can get one of the 32 starting backs in the NFL on your fantasy team, why would you not? Especially when it's somebody trending upwards in both productivity and value. We knew that James Conner would be out for an extended period of time with that knee injury, but what we didn't know until recently was who the next man up would be for the Cardinals. Well, from what we've seen, the answer is Emari Demercado. He saw an amazing 80% of snaps in the Cardinals' loss to the Seahawks in Week 7, had 17 touches, and the most promising part, in my opinion, yeah, I'm pretty happy about the 5 targets he had in this week's action. That's the 3rd most amount of targets on this team in that contest. Demercado has given us 2 double-digit fantasy performances over the course of the last 3 weeks, so somebody who's definitely trending upward and fits on this list. He's been far more efficient than Keontae Ingram. Damian Williams just has 9 carries in 2 games, so I think we've got ourselves the main contributor unless anything crazy happens over the course of this week. He's got north of 4 yards per carry against a tough Seahawks team under his belt now. We do have some games coming up against Baltimore, Cleveland, and Atlanta, who are all middle of the pack in terms of their rush defense. Even if some of those games get ugly and, say, Baltimore dismantles the Cardinals, which we saw what they're capable of against the Lions last week, we've got one of the better pass-catching backs on this list who has the RB1 spot on his team seemingly secured for a bit. We've been following this Jaylen Warren saga for a while, and I think we can safely say he's a week or 2 away from fully taking over this Steelers starting running back 1 job. I mean, he's all knotted up with Najee Harris right now at 3.9 yards per attempt, but those guys have been trending in very different directions. Najee Harris downwards, Jaylen Warren upwards. And there's also a stark difference between these two Pittsburgh backs at the moment. Warren has Harris beat in yards before contact per attempt. Now, maybe the blocking schemes are working just a bit better when Warren's on the field. That could lead to some deviation. But to me, especially as the sample size gets bigger and bigger, that shows that Jaylen Warren is bringing in some speed and hitting the hole just quicker. For those tougher runs, let's see if we can back this up with some more evidence. Harris is averaging north of 2 yards after contact per attempt, while Warren is averaging less than 1. Well, that leads us to the fact that Jaylen Warren is also seeing way more receiving volume. He's second on the team at 27 targets at the moment. Are you seeing the mold that's taking place here? Are you seeing the trend that we've seen throughout the NFL for the last few years especially? We have the quicker running back in Jaylen Warren who can go to work for a team on first and second down. As indicated by his 4.5 targets per game, he's very versatile. And then we have Najee Harris developing into somebody who will have his number called on 3rd and 1 and goal-to-go situations. This gives Warren the PPR upside with the receptions he's been seeing, but Najee Harris could turn into somebody who could poach touchdowns here and there. Think Ezekiel Elliott in 2022. Regardless, I feel a lot better about somebody in Jaylen Warren who doesn't need to rely on those touchdowns to perform well in fantasy, and he's seeing more usage as we roll through this season. Lots to like about him here. This option in D'Onta Foreman is more of a temporary one, depending on the health of the Bears backfield going forward, but you cannot pass up what Foreman could do for you in the very near future. I mean, no, we aren't going to see 3 touchdowns every single week. That would be pretty cool. Foreman is in a relatively crowded backfield when they are healthy, but they aren't right now. So let's just take a look at his profile over the years to see what we're dealing with. We have an efficient, hard-nosed, 3-down back who can go in and just be productive. He's not much of a receiving threat traditionally, though he did take 1 check down from Tyson Bagent to the house, but he's on a team right now in the Bears that obviously poses a lot of opportunity and gives him chances to thrive. Not only is the claim that Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson don't have a firm hold on their spots a legitimate one, because they don't, but look at the state of the Bears offense right now. They're out of a quarterback for the next week or two and put Tyson Bagent in for a healthy dosage of checking the ball down and running it. Well, on Sunday, albeit it was against the Raiders and a backup QB in Brian Hoyer, that strategy worked. The Bears had no turnovers. They ran the ball on 56% of the plays. It looked a lot more like the team from last year, and it worked. And not only did running this ball a lot work, but giving Bagent a simple game plan that included Foreman having 5 targets also worked. I can't speak on what the Bears will be doing a month from now. What I can say is that this team is keeping their backup comfortable with a conservative game plan, and a lot of the options that could take touches away from D'Onta Foreman in Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert are banged up. So the world is his oyster right now. We haven't seen any reports on Aaron Jones, but something must have happened in the rehab process, and as a result, A.J. Dillon is raking in the benefits. Let's dive into this. Way back in week 4, so almost a month ago now, Aaron Jones was in for just 35% of snaps. Remember, he was nursing the same hamstring injury that he suffered in week 1 against the Bears and is currently dealing with now. Now, after taking week 5 off and having a bye week in week 6, he was in for just 36% of snaps, virtually the same amount of usage in week 7 as he had in week 4. Maybe something happened in the recovery process and we haven't been updated on it, so tread lightly here. Dillon is more of an appealing standard and half PPR play considering he only has 8 targets in 6 games, but he outsnapped Jones this past week by being in for 56% of snaps, so he's getting the opportunity. This is strictly a volume and touchdown upside play, as A.J. Dillon also has 13 of the team's 21 rushes inside of the red zone. He hasn't been efficient by any means. I'm not going to act like he has been. He's sitting around just 3.2 yards per carry, but someone who has at least 15 touches in 4 of 6 games presents certain opportunity. We talk about our 3 categories in fantasy football that we want to look into, right? Availability, are they healthy? Opportunity, are they getting chances? And productivity, are they efficient when they get those chances? Well, A.J. Dillon has 2 of those 3 boxes checked off right now. I've had the same opinion on the Tyjae Spears situation over the course of the last few weeks, but now it has only grown stronger. That's the difference. He's sitting at 5.5 yards per carry and is looking like the most prominent threat to Derrick Henry's spot as the bell cow back because of Henry's performance. Let's back up. We've seen this decline in the past when you look at efficiency for Derrick Henry. He dropped a whole yard per carry from 2020 to 2021, but hey, at least the volume's still there, right? From 2019 to 2022, in those 4 seasons, we have somebody who averaged greater than 20 carries per contest. Again, a volume and productivity monster. We're down to 15 carries per game this year, so a 25% decrease in usage, partially because of what Spears has been able to do about a third of the way through the season. Tyjae Spears has been in for a little over 50% of snaps in each of the last 4 games. Derrick Henry has been in for less snaps than Tyjae Spears in 2 of the last 4 weeks to someone who is younger, quicker, and guess what? Is powering through contact better, we've got to take a serious look at Tyjae Spears. Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day, but Derrick Henry's actually the second best running back on his own team in yards after contact per attempt at the moment. The sample size is growing, and that gap is nearly a yard per attempt between Henry and Spears. Spears has age, efficiency, apparently toughness on his side as well, and on a team that's likely going to be turning the page on a new quarterback, judging by Ryan Tannehill's play, and overall just durability so far this year, I think Tyjae Spears, when he does take over, is going to be in line for a lot of work. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Feel free to like and subscribe if this content is valuable to you. Comment any questions you have as we head into week 8 of fantasy football, and we will see you in the next video.